Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. Now, pour yourself a stiff drink, get seated because you were going to need it. When I told you last month the GPU market was going to get a lot worse before we finally reach the end of the GPU crisis, which is still coming, by the way, it's getting a lot worse, and it's getting a lot worse right now. But Black Friday is on the horizon. We'll take a look at whether or not that's going to have any impact on your ability to get a GPU at MSRP or anything approaching a reasonable price, and we'll take a look at those prices. Of course, if you get value out of this video, give it a like. It really does make a big difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click the bell icon. That way you get notified when we go live. All right, with that, let's jump into it. Let's start off with everyone's favorite data. Let's take a look at the Tom's Hardware eBay average GPU price tracking data. And of course, I do a little bit more manipulation of it for September to October. So the last time we spoke, GPU prices had edged up actually quite a bit in some cases, while a handful of them had come down, like the 3060 Ti. Well, good news, at least through the middle of October for the data that we have, we can see that the prices came down for most cards. Now, they're still sky high. We know that. But the prices on the secondary market did decrease on average by 2.5% for the NVIDIA cards. That's the RTX 3000 series. And for the AMD RX 6000 series, they decreased about 1%. So that's pretty flat on the AMD side. Nice, but very small decrease on the RTX side. Still, you're looking at, if you want to go to eBay and look at buying an RTX 3060, right now, I'm seeing cards listed for about $680 on to the $700, $720 range. That's a little higher than they have been, just a month or two ago. 3060 Ti, similarly, we can take a look. We've got cards here for $824, $830. I think recently in one of our Boost My Builds, I talked about you could get one for just between $800 and $850. I think you can still do that. RTX 3080, this one's been up and down, but right now it's finishing out somewhere around $1,450 to $1,500 for a decent RTX 3080. So overall, the graphics card market is relatively stagnant / slight decrease from the last time we spoke. So this is what it looks like graphically. As you can see, the RTX 3090 is still in a stratosphere, by itself. We've got the 3080 Ti and the 3080 are pretty close. The 3070 Ti, big gap there between the 3070 Ti, by the way, and the 3070. And of course, then we've got all the other cards bunched up below. Pretty flat, slight downward trend. If we take a look at the historical trends since just before the launch of the RTX 3080 Ti, about a month or so, we can see that graphics card prices indeed did come down from their highs in the spring. They came down probably to about a low in August, bumped back up towards October, and have flattened out now overall. And then, of course, if we take a look at the average price for NVIDIA and AMD, just the families of cards, the average NVIDIA price, again, we were out here in the stratosphere at 824. We've come down into just, I don't know what's the one just below the stratosphere, the lithosphere, I can't remember, down to about $1,431. You can see this roller coaster ride that we've been on with prices. AMD graphics card prices have been considerably lower. $1,446 at the height, roller coaster down, and now they're down around $1,000. That's the average price of an Radeon RX 6000 GPU being sold right now on eBay. So why are graphic card prices continuing to be crazy? Why aren't they coming down despite record shipments of graphics cards by both NVIDIA and AMD? Well, if you've been living under a rock, it's a little thing called Ethereum mining. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency that is GPU mineable. You use a graphics card to mine it. And unfortunately, the last time we spoke, in fact, this doesn't even quite cover it, Ethereum was just under $3,000 per Ether. It has absolutely exploded. You can see the number up here. It's at $4,500 per Ether. It has increased by 50% in just over a month. Well, what does that mean for you? Well, these Ethereum miners, they've got, they start with a couple of graphics cards. These are RTX 3090s, for instance, in a rig. And then it gets bigger, and all of a sudden you get rigs that look like this. And then you have facilities that are just stocked with graphics cards until you end up with giant warehouses full of them. This is where all the graphics cards are going. And why is that? Well, simple. This number right here, which is the amount of profit, let me blow this up for you. This is the amount of profit you get, $8.70 from an RTX 3090. That number just 2 months ago was $6.50. It is now hovering well above $8.50 most of the time. It's at $8.70 right now. That is an insane amount of profit. And what's happening is, even though, yes, Ethereum mining is still going away, we're just about to get to that, the amount of time it's going to take the miners to break even on these cards is reducing every time that number goes up. So it makes sense for them to just start slapping in graphics cards. And frankly, I've seen the RX 6600 XT virtually disappear over the last 2 weeks, just completely get erased from availability. And a lot of it is because that's the graphics card that's available. Miners are buying it. Even they're buying bundles with motherboards and PSUs and just throwing those things away. That's how profitable Ethereum mining is right now. There are some things that are holding back that profitability, and one thing is the difficulty. So remember that Ethereum has a built-in mechanism so that miners can't just flood the network and print tons of money. Imagine if the US Treasury, and I know no politics in here, but imagine if the US Treasury just started printing trillion-dollar coins. All of a sudden, the money that you and I make would be totally worthless, or would eventually become totally worthless through inflation. Ethereum has a similar mechanism called difficulty in there. So the more people that are mining Ethereum, the harder it gets to mine. At the height of the last GPU crisis in 2017, 2018, the difficulty was around 3,500. That just gives you some sense of how many graphics cards were on that network. Yes, there's ASICs and other things, but let's stick to graphics cards here. Just before China took action against Ethereum miners, because they are slamming the electricity grid in China, which is exactly what China needs right now to get on its feet post-pandemic to get all the factories back up and running. So China said, hey, give us that electricity back, get the heck out of here. It was at just about 8,000, and then it's dropped down here to about 6,200. It has now spiked up. I think the last time we talked to you was just over 9,000. It is now 10,488. That gives you some sense of how many graphics cards have been added to the Ethereum mining network. I mean, look at the difference between the last GPU crisis and today. It's more than 3 times. It's just absolutely insane. Unfortunately, in terms of supply, I have some terrible news, actually originally reported by Moore's Law is Dead. He actually did a really good video on it, and I recommend you check it out. I'll include a link to it down in the description. He is alleging through his sources that NVIDIA is in the process right now of halting production on their RTX 3000 series. You said, Jason, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, from their perspective, it does. Remember, they're a corporation. They've set out certain guidance to their shareholders on how much they expect to make in terms of quarterly sales. They feel like they have enough to hit their quarterly sales projections. So why flood the market and further reduce the price? Why not just stop the production, start it up maybe in December for January sales? So they're just looking to close out the year. Again, this is what happens when corporations, they're more interested in driving share price necessarily than answering the consumer market takeover, in that. And NVIDIA, of course, don't forget, has about 80% of the overall market share. In fact, let's just take a look at the Steam market share here. You can see it's mostly green. There's a little bit of blue for integrated Intel graphics, and AMD has about 15, maybe 16% of the overall market. So NVIDIA is the big player here, and they're able to do things like that because they have a near monopolistic control over the market. Not that gamers have helped, and AMD's contributed to this as well, because a lot of gamers will only buy from NVIDIA. I recently asked you, why weren't you buying the RX 6600 XT? And a lot of you said, you're just not interested in AMD graphics cards. And I get it. But one of the things that we may have to change is we might have to decide that we are going to start buying AMD graphics cards for a while. I'm not an AMD fanboy here. I'm just saying that we have to work perhaps to balance the market. So I did a whole video on how the graphics card crisis is going to finally end. And yes, we are coming to the end of it. Be assured, I'll include a link to that video up in the card so you can check it out in more detail. But the nutshell version of it is that 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, Intel is going to launch their Arc lineup of dedicated GPUs. This is going to come. They're probably going to launch mobile first in the first quarter of 2022. And then in the second quarter, we can expect to see the dedicated GPUs hit shelves. And they are doing 2 different versions, at least, probably more. I know they released something like 32 SKUs the other day. A lot of those are probably mobile, but they are going to compete at the low end as well as at the higher end. Around an RTX 3070 is some of the early leaked benchmarks. So that's number one thing that's going to happen. We are going to get a lot more supply into the graphics card market via Intel. The other thing that will finally drive a stake through the heart of this GPU crisis, and I believe usher us into a new golden era of PC building, especially from the gaming perspective, is going to be the end of Ethereum mining. Again, I went through this in deep detail in my last video, and I told you that the developers were pushing back the difficulty bomb, which would effectively end Ethereum mining via GPUs as they move to proof of stake. They were moving it back from December 1st and had not yet fixed on the date that they were going to kick it to. And I was hoping we were going to get a Q1 2022 date. Unfortunately, they decided to play it safe and give themselves more flexibility. They would like never to have to push the bomb back again. They would like to just go ahead and finish what's called the merge before then. They pushed back the Ethereum difficulty bomb to June 2022. Now, that is just kind of a drop dead date, if you will. They can actually implement what's called the merge, which would end Ethereum mining before that. So I'm expecting, based on what they're saying, the code is going to be probably deployed and developed on the test servers by February of 2022. I think we're probably looking somewhere around an April or May launch for the merge. I think they would want to do it ahead of the difficulty bomb going off in June. That way they give themselves some time to fix bugs and things of that nature. And as we get closer to that date, it is going to become increasingly a bad idea for miners to buy cards because there's not going to be enough time for them to get back their profits. So we are going to start to see perhaps some movement on the secondary market ahead of the merge, but definitely after the merge, because 95% right now, or something like 90 to 95% of all of the GPU mineable currency, remember Bitcoin and other, they're mined with ASICs. They're not mined with GPUs. So those GPUs are going to need a GPU mineable currency to go to. And sadly for them, there just absolutely isn't one right now. They're going to get crushed, and those miners are going to look to sell off all their graphics cards in their mining rigs. The same thing happened in 2018 to 2019. Again, I went through all this in a previous video. To me, that's going to usher in a new era of PC building on the cheap, and we can finally rejoice. We're just not there yet. We probably have another 5 to 7 months. Okay, so will Black Friday bring some price relief to at least some segment of the graphics card market? Well, let me first start off by telling you in terms of current availability, and I'm sure these will actually be gone by the time this video goes live in just a day or so. There were a ton of Newegg RX 6600 and 6600 XT combo deals on Newegg, and they were just absolute tons of them. In fact, I literally just hit refresh and it went from 8 to 2. That's because they are all selling out, and they're selling out rapidly. And again, the miners are buying them, and they're just taking the motherboards and they're tossing them away. I don't even believe this is necessarily scalpers buying them. I think this is miners, because if you look at the price on eBay, it wouldn't make any sense to buy them with the motherboard here and try and sell them for, $600 is what they're going for on eBay. But they're going away rapidly. So number one, if you want a graphics card right now, I would take a look at getting any of these that are left. Similarly, at the Micro Center near me, if you look, they have a handful of our Radeon RX 6600. I don't even see a single 6600 XT left. Now, I've heard that AMD is supposed to be increasing their availability. Well, clearly somebody's buying all these cards because they have been sitting there for 2 months. I'm not even kidding you. They've been sitting there for 2 months. You know this if you watch my videos regularly. I'm always telling you, buy these combos. They're almost all gone. So I would not wait for Black Friday if you want to get an RX 6600 or something of that nature. Of course, you can do Newegg Shuffle. So some of the areas I think we may see Black Friday deals are on the super high end of Radeon RX 6900 XT, 6800 XT, and 6700 XT cards that really have not been selling very well. Well, they've probably been selling well, but they're always in stock at Newegg, for instance. For about $1,600 or more for the 6900 XT, you can get a 6800 XT with a motherboard combo, and not a bad motherboard too, for $1,500. And of course, if you want to go down to the 6700 XT, you can currently find combos for just around the $1,100 to $1,200 mark, maybe even around $1,000 if you get lucky. I think you might see some discounts on those, but I honestly wouldn't wait. All the other components are going to be on absolute fire sale. I believe this is going to be the case as long as they're not Alder Lake. Alder Lake is probably, in fact, going to inflate a little bit, but I would expect that that you'll see discounts on AMD CPUs, on Intel 10th and 11th generation CPUs. So I would say get the graphics card ASAP and then try and save your money back or get some of that money back in discounts that you can get on Black Friday on all the other components. So should you buy now or should you wait? Well, this question has never been easier to answer during the graphics card crisis. It's very, very stark. If you want to build something between now and June 2022, yes, June 2022, then you better get a graphics card right now. Do not wait. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just buy the graphics card as quick as you can and make sure it is the first component you buy, because you may have to buy it in a bundle with a motherboard, a power supply, something else, and you don't want to end up with two of those. Okay, so if you're going to get it now and then try and save as much money as you can during Black Friday, because we will see discounts on CPUs, on motherboards. There's a ton of that stuff out there that isn't being used because the graphics cards are being sold to Ethereum miners who don't need any of it. It's not going into building actual PCs, so there's a glut of motherboards and CPUs and other things that need to be sold off. You can probably find some great discounts in order to help offset the cost of that stupidly expensive GPU. Now, on the other hand, if you're like, oh, I'm cool until June 2022, then just buckle your seatbelt, because this market is about to go from bad to horrible to unimaginably terrible before we see an absolute flood of graphics cards come in once Ethereum mining turns off and Intel launches their GPUs. But that's not going to happen until next year, until probably around June of next year. Maybe later, maybe a little earlier, we'll see. But that would be my target date if you're looking to wait. That's the answer to that question. So if you do want to get a graphics card now, what are your best options? Well, obviously, Newegg Shuffle. If you're not familiar with Newegg Shuffle, they hold this pretty much every weekday, or at least every day that they have stock. It launches 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and only goes for 2 hours. You can register for all these various products in here, including stuff like PlayStation and Xbox, but graphics card, and they typically do all these in bundles, although they have some individual cards as well. I recently won Newegg Shuffle again. Yes, I know, embarrassment of riches over here. So it does work. I know it. I've won several graphics cards off of Newegg Shuffle. Just set an alarm on your phone to repeat every Monday through Friday at 11:05 a.m. Eastern time. That's what I do. And just come in here and just register for everything that you can in order to get yourself a graphics card. The next thing you can do, if you've got a micro center or a physical store near you, this has actually got to be one of the better methods to go in. Go make friends with a manager. Just find out, when do they get graphics card deliveries. For micro center, for instance, there is a Discord for each and every single micro center out there, individual location, and it'll go through things like when they drop the graphics cards, when you should line up. Another really, really good option. Obviously, I know not everyone lives near a micro center. I would not, look, I know Best Buy does big drops. Those have gotten kind of scary recently. I wouldn't go to one. But the other thing I would take a look at, of course, listen, gaming laptops, another really great option. I know not everyone's enthralled. I know, especially if you want to build a PC, you're like, gaming laptop. But maybe it gets you through the next 8 months. And frankly, the performance is really nice on them. I will I'll just go ahead and push my best gaming laptop 2021 fall video that I recently released, where I go through everything you need to know in order to buy the best gaming laptop. But you don't have to look at my guide. There's other guides out there. And of course, I go ahead and list down in the video description, I list out all the deals, and I keep this updated on a regular basis. Pre-built gaming PCs are another good way to go, especially if you are somebody who ultimately may want to tinker with your build in the future and do different things, but you can't afford one right now because the pre-built system integrators are getting these graphics cards at much better pricing than you or I. They have volume deals with many of the AIB board partners, and they don't have to necessarily, they're competing a little bit with the miners, of course, but they have volume license deals with them, and they're guaranteed a certain amount of cards. So this is another great option. I'll put my video out there. Again, I'll link it right there in the card, and I'll put it down in the description. And I do know Alder Lake CPU driven prebuilts are coming very, very soon to the likes of Newegg, to the likes of Amazon and other outlets. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for joining me on this month's GPU update. Yes, it's absolutely bananas out there, but remember, the end is coming. It's just not here quite yet. And of course, if you got value of the video, give it a like. It really makes a big difference to the channel, absolutely. And subscribe and click the bell icon. That way you get notified when we release new content. And of course, I will catch you on the next one.